Going
Welcome.
live.
Good to see
Long
you.
time no see, my friend.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're live now. We're live. Good evening, everybody, and good afternoon to to Lawrence, and I believe it's noon time.
Yeah,
Lawrence and
lunchtime.
Dr. Claire, our guest speaker, also is in Doha right now, right? And I believe it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And Salman, you're in Bahrain, right? Yeah, I believe
Yes,
Salman.
yes, my dear.
Yes,
It is 3 o'clock
three
also.
o'clock
It's
also,
3.
and we have with us Sosan also, and with us are our group also is Gloria Antorfia, Nelda Pagio, and Nikki. Yes, and Nancy
Good,
is with us.
good evening po.
Dr. Claire, thank you so much for gracing our uh, small television production.
It's a privilege. I'm very excited to be with everyone today.
Yes, and Dr. Lawrence, thank you very much. This is the third appearance of Dr. Lawrence for our program. I actually negotiated for only one, and he gave me three.
Wow,
That's
that's
because I
Yes.
think what you're doing is very worthwhile.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for supporting. So, for our viewers, tonight's event actually originated when I saw a post by Dr. Lawrence about agile teams, facilitating agile teams. And when I read about it without even asking Dr. Lawrence first, I know it would be helpful for uh, teams managed by persons with disabilities in the Philippines. Okay, because in the Philippines, we have so many federations of persons with disabilities. We have so many associations of self-help groups. We have ours, in fact, is one non-profit corporation, and it's a small team. We have a small team, and I became very curious with the keyword that Dr. Claire has put there. It's the agile, the agility. And I never thought of organizations of teams as becoming agile. And if that is the term that Dr. Claire used, then it must be very, very important aspect of facilitating teams. And with that, I tried to invite Lawrence, and Lawrence led me to Dr. Claire, and here we are now. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Claire, Dr. Lawrence for facilitating agile teams. Okay, Dr. Claire.
Thank you so much. I am honored and privileged to be with you all this afternoon and this evening, depending wherever you are. What I've prepared is a few slides, first of all, in terms of disability, because so much is going on in the world. I've been actually reading even more around this area just recently. I'll then move on to link how agile teams and agility and coaching can
wait
help
lang may meeting ako eh. Mag
so that people's voices are heard. So that's the plan, and I will now share my screen. And doesn't it always feel like such a long time when you're sharing your screen and everyone's waiting? So give me a second. And here we are. So, tiny bit about me. I'm a master certified coach with International Coach Federation, and also a master practitioner and accredited supervisor with European Mentoring and Coaching Council. And interestingly, my very first job when I left university as a trained teacher was working with children with the definitions at that point were moderate learning difficulties and associated behavioural problems. So I worked in a school north of London for 3 years, and so this is close to my heart, and even closer to my heart because I'm dyslexic. And when I was at school, all those years ago, when I was at school, it was hardly heard of and wasn't recognised. So I know from my personal journey, the way that that's in some ways helped me and hindered me along the way, and the way with resilience I've navigated that journey. So I hope today that everyone can take something away in terms of not only learning, but also thought about the way we all may choose to look at things differently as well. So equality, diversity, and inclusion. There, I've put a few colourful areas up there. There's even more. And every year there's more things that we realise that we didn't realise that is in this agenda. And it's about, why is this topic so important? What's the purpose of these types of discussions? Knowledge share, learning together, growing on others' ideas, generative thinking, and hopefully positively transforming the world together. And isn't it fabulous that there's people from all over the world actually listening in right now? And then who is it for? So in my view, it's for everyone. I honestly think we need a systemic approach that isn't just for the inner circle. It actually has a massive impact on schools, on universities, on the workplace, on families, on society. And that, I feel, is who this agenda is for, so we can all transform together. So there are many different practices in terms of recruitment. These slides we can share afterwards, of course. Just a few to point out here. There's questions and legalities around things like equal pay. There's pipelines. Where do people recruit from? What way are people promoted in organisations? And what way can we ensure that everything is equitable? These conversations need to be out there and take place. And then as well, we'll have a little chat about unconscious bias, the things that we're not aware of. And the way by having these conversations, we learn ourselves and we have those light bulb moments, aha moments where things click into place and they make more sense, and especially from the perspective of the person with disabilities. So inclusive interviews, are we ensuring that the approach, the facilities, the technology, even the language that's used in interviews is enabling everyone to do their best in this environment? And many, many more things there, even on that topic alone. So in the past, 70s, 80s, I'm sure you'll agree there, Lawrence, there was a lot of talk about equality. And it feels like this type of energy, equality is the answer. And then we shifted towards, actually, it's not treating everyone the same. And isn't this a great diagram? And I'm sorry, I don't know the artist, otherwise I would share it. It's not treating everyone the same that's important. It's treating people the way they need to be treated. And then taking a step forward from that, it's actually being proactive and breaking down the barriers. In this case, that physical fence in the way. And that is a move towards liberation. So briefly across the top, we need to build critical consciousness. What that means is the more aware and conscious we are, and the more we understand what elements of oppression people are experiencing, the more we can help change to take place. And yes, we need people to work together. We need to have diverse teams. The world is such a melting pot. And just COVID recently, how many times have you been connected with people all over the globe? That isn't going to go away. It's going to increase. And the fact is, actually, at a range of levels, we need to make sure that we work in a way that helps not only support everyone to be able to give their absolute best, but also to be able to create opportunities. So some people say, should we have quotas or not? Should it be about meritocracy? People getting into education and positions because of their ability. Personally, I say the jury's out. There isn't a right or wrong, good or bad. What is important is the structures, the processes and systems are in place to enable people to have opportunities. So how does this link to coaching? So I can have a chat with someone. Does that enable me to really listen and understand things from the perspective as a person with disabilities? Maybe a little bit. If I empathize and really try and step into their shoes and get curious and be vulnerable enough to ask naive questions, that's the way I will listen deeply to understand. The other thing I've mentioned is generative thinking, working together. Many of us from diverse backgrounds, ages, genders, and disabilities to be able to create better solutions. And then powerful questioning. So asking open questions that enable people to really, that's an interesting question. If you get that type of response of, that body language, you've hit the nail on the head. An open question. And also silence. Absolute listening to everything. Not just to the words, but the body language and the energy of the person that's speaking. Ensuring psychological safety. So this is 3 hours on its own. In a nutshell, if someone is comfortable with you, they will speak longer and they will share more. That helps us understand more. And then the systemic lens I talked about, what do people with disabilities need from us? Really focusing outside in. What way can we support people for them to achieve their potential? So these are coaching competencies that I'm sure you'll agree really help all of us understand things even deeper. So moving on to a focus on disabilities. So yes, some people would say, oh my goodness, why on earth did she use those horrendous bright colours? Just have a look at those statistics from the European Commission. Shocking. And of course, with gender and with social class, these things make situations even worse for people with disabilities. So that's some facts from the European Commission. And yeah, on the other hand, top business school research and Accenture, one of the major consulting companies, state that companies that employ people with disabilities create more profit and value. And what's important is if we're not aware of this, if we cannot get these messages out there, then it can hinder the chances of people with disabilities, unfortunately, getting certain positions and having the impact that they quite clearly quite rightly create to support organizations. So linking this to Agile. So Agile is a methodology and a philosophy, and it came first of all about 20 years ago when people used to project manage through waterfall and other approaches. You start here and here's what we're going to do and here's how we're going to do it, and just like water, it trickles down and then you get the result. And yet, my goodness, how much the world has changed. What's needed is an iterative approach. So what I mean by that is changing as needed as we go along, working fast, failing fast, learning from mistakes, ensuring that teams actually have short, focused meetings that allow them to even every day get together and share where they are on different projects. The other important thing here is working, there's lots of different words from it. I use the word time box. So that's being realistic about what can be done in a 2-hour block. And if I don't manage to complete that, with the team, we look together. Who has finished earlier? Who can step in to help me finish this? Because of the dependencies, because of the next person who needs that closed so they can continue with their work. So Agile is an iterative, ongoing, flexible process. And obviously looking at time, quality, and price. Now, the values are so resonant here: respect, courage, inclusiveness, and an open, curious growth mindset. I know this much now, and I also know there's even more to learn. Okay, can you see the way that essence ties in with a lot of things that I've shared already? So, a summary of Agile: it's a guiding orientation, and it's an approach to project work. And every team, as opposed to a group, has a shared purpose. It needs the true north. That's our purpose, and everything we do is aligned to that. And everyone has their roles that are clear in the team and the work that they will produce. So agility means we're able to respond to setbacks easier. Can you see why the world needs agility? And the agility bit, if you think about it in terms of movement, but also thinking. If you're under stress and you work to solve a problem, what usually happens? Anyone like to share? Let's have some mics off. You've got something creative or a problem to solve and you're under absolute pressure. What happens usually?
Usually, Miss Claire,
Yes.
usually people go with little options, few options. They see the word from the little hole of the nail itself. They don't see the full word.
Absolutely. And thank you. And in comparison with agility, we actually want even more ideas, because the more ideas that are generated, the better solutions we can choose because we've got more options. Thank you, Salman. So an agile team always collaborates, sorry, I couldn't get my word out then, and they work in synergy with each other, and they plan for dependencies. What do we need to fit into place to enable us to do our job right now? And we need all sorts of ideas. It also links to design thinking. For example, if someone has never experienced a disability. It is difficult for them to understand how to make a product or a service for someone with disabilities. And that in itself shows that we need diverse teams. So this was actually a drawing my daughter made, and look at these two. The ones in green, they both, I'm being stereotypical, they both love football, or they both like golfing together, and look at the two in the blue. Totally left out. Resonates? And the thing is, the greens are not noticing. This team is not working together for a shared purpose. And it's the not noticing that is the biggest problem. And we all need to be leaders and take ownership and responsibility to communicate in the best way that we can to get our voices or message heard, so that the others are aware that we are not being noticed, heard, or listened to. We are all leaders, and it's all of our role to do that. So, have a think about this for you and for your organisation and your school and your society. What messages do you proactively promote? Where do you advertise vacancies? What ways are application forms enabling everyone to access them and complete them effectively? What ways can interviews take place to allow people, everyone, to be able to show up at their best? Because that's what gets a diverse team together. It's got to be inclusive from the get-go. And what ways can, in fact, the whole world draw upon people's strengths? So what way does agility, this methodology in terms of not only the project management of being agile, but agility as a word and a way of doing, benefit inclusivity and diversity? It has been proven to increase innovation. It helps you get closer to the customer's needs and meet their expectations. Clients' needs in your society, in your not-for-profit as well, hearing their voices. And bottom line can be increased, revenue can be increased. However, great, we've got diversity and we've got inclusion and we've got our quotas in place. The missing thing, if you only go that far, the impact will not be as powerful unless you ensure belonging. And that's the bit that taps in to the listening and the questioning and the understanding to support psychological safety. It's a shift in our mindset to be open to others' perspectives. So we have a coaching model with results in the center and the elements around the outside can be dipped into at any point. So what do you want for your charity? What skills have you got to enable that to happen? What knowledge do you know? What do you need to learn? What behaviours and way of working together are in place, and what way can they be improved? All of this is related to reflection. Where are you now? Where do you need to be for the sake of your clients? And of course, what needs to happen, the action piece? And what impact, big, massive dream, do you want to create for the whole system? And there's a recap that will go round in these slides of what I've just said. So results is the main thing. Keep in mind all the time, begin with the end in mind. And we have these competencies for people, leaders, and also team coaches to be able to work in more agility and more flow with the people that they work with to gain the results that are needed. And we also have a profile, and NGOs are very welcome to use the profile complimentary. Contact me and we will make that happen. It enables teams to understand at team level their strengths and development areas. And then we create a plan to make the team work even more effectively with more resilience, produce more results, and so forth. Very happy also for your team to take part in that. And that's a lot. The last point, the 7 C's of critical learning. We need to know, understand, and be able to apply our learning. We need to capture it and catapult it, throw it into the future so that others down the line, our children's children, learn from what we've been experiencing and learning ourselves. Myself and Lawrence have been having this type of conversation just recently. And of course, there are challenges along the way. The best way to meet the challenges, let's have dialogue and work together. And there's always solutions to enable more inclusivity for people with disabilities. And here's just a few. And transformation, we need it as a cycle. We start, we plan, we conclude, and then we review and we go round again. And there we have it. There's where we started. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Claire.
Pleasure.
And Dr. Lawrence will be
Hi.
speaking next.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate some of the things that Claire was saying. And there was one sentence she said, which I'd like her to just unpack a bit more and talk about in a little bit more detail. Agility is a way of doing. Agility as a way of doing. I'm going to give that back to you, Claire.
So what I'd stress there is, I'm going to take it even further. It's a way of doing and working together and drawing on strengths and reciprocity. I support you and you support me, and we both know where everyone in the team is at. But more than that, I'd even add, it's a way of being. So if you live with agility, it becomes embedded in all that you do.
Thank
Any
you,
more
Dr. Claire.
questions?
Dr. Lawrence?
No, it's just interesting that agility came, in the words of a workplace, we had centric teams who were centric to the customer. And that became that you needed more agility in the workspace to react to change. Because as you can realize in the last 6 months or so, change is happening at an hourly rate. I mean, we're in a place of shift at the moment. We're in a place of flux. All workplaces are in a place of immense flux. Change is about to happen. It's happening all the time now. We don't know what the big picture is going to look like anymore. Even 3 months down the line, we can't imagine what it's going to look like. So I think teams and team leadership, especially the coaches who are leading and bringing the teams to their goal, need to be able to react to change, as Claire said. But first of all, you've got to be looking for that change. You've got to appreciate that you've got to seek the need for shifts in direction. So if you're looking at a project milestone, for example, you begin with your initial group you want to get together to work with, and you want to make them into a high-performing team in order to move along to a defined outcome. But on the way, there are little shifts in direction. You thought it was a linear drive, and suddenly you find there are diversion signs up because there are barriers ahead in the road, and you've got to find ways around. In order to be prepared for that, you need to do also, as Claire brought up, you need to be able to brainstorm ideas and different solutions, design thinking and mind mapping, for example, with teams, in order to find alternative solutions in a place where we never know what's happening tomorrow. That's the real agility of the team. It's that level of cohesion and understanding that they're going to go together in different directions and listen to each other. And of course, having people with various different perspectives in the team, you get different ideas, different solutions will appear. This goes back to something I mentioned on Friday, I think it was, when I talked about the need for creative thinking. And yesterday when I was on with you, we were talking about MOOCs. There was a question about short online micro courses. And I suggested that if you put a search into a computer with a topic such as what is design thinking, and then you put MOOC after it, you'll come up with a list of 10 or 15 courses from various institutions that you could do for free and learn and get a certificate at the end of it, or just take the material and understand what it is in a day or two and then cast it aside. You've got the information you needed to move forward. You don't need to go for the full certificate. Most people who take these massive open online courses we've been talking about in the last week, half of them don't finish because half of them only want the information. They don't want the certificate. They don't need it. So if you go and you look at mind mapping, then you might end up with a place where you've got a problem. You don't know how to solve the problem. Write it down. It's a bit like a grievance you've got at work or at university. If you can't write it down, there's nothing you can do about it. It's too emotive. You've got to get the emotion away, the subjectivity away, and make sure it's an objective statement. Write it down. When I was in HR and people would come to me with a grievance, I'd say, can you write it down? That'd be the first thing. Write it down and give it to me on paper. And often, a third of those people would walk away. They realized they didn't just have a grievance, they were just upset. And they needed to get that out. And one way of getting rid of anger and frustration and grief is to write. Just write it down, get it out there. So if you can write down a problem statement, and this goes back to the question I had yesterday, then you can brainstorm it with a family friend, a good friend, a set of colleagues at work, sit around a table, read out the problem statement and agree to it. And then say, okay, in the next 20 minutes, we have to come up with 100 solutions, or part solutions, or silly solutions, just ideas. They could be whole sentence solutions, or they could just be ideas or words that might help me solve this problem. And you'd be surprised if you concentrate and you sit around either on your own, but preferably with 2 or 3 other people, all going in the same direction, or moving forward to that one goal, you can come up with 90 to 100 solutions to that problem in 20 minutes. Honestly, you give yourself the time, 20 minutes, no more. You write them all down. And then you forget about it. Don't talk about it anymore. Go and have a cup of tea, go home, come back in the morning and sit down and have a look at it. And 1 or 2 of those 100 items will stand out because you've been sleeping on the idea. Your subconscious has worked through responses and the feasibility. And in the morning, when you sit down, you will have a better idea of how to move forward. And that just relates to working in teams to make agile changes in the workplace or in family situations. Claire, anything else to add to that?
I think that's fabulous. And again, sometimes that professional sounding board or a coach can help you go through this process. There's the writing down, absolutely. Who, what, where, how, why, when. Asking those things can help. And then also, even just saying it out loud and hearing yourself say it, that can also support creativity as well. Thank you, Lawrence.
It's a good way to learn is to say it out loud. And a good way for Trudy, for example, to teach or to learn something is to teach somebody else how to do it, right? Your daughter and my daughter, I keep saying, go and teach your little sister how to do that. And it'll help you understand that topic area in more detail if she understands it.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Dr. Claire. Dr. Claire, is there a minimum number before one is considered a team? Let's say, can two persons be considered a team?
So I would say two persons can be considered a team because I think a marriage is teamwork. So that's the short answer. The slightly longer answer, lots of research has been done and there's varying opinions. The best number for a team is often seen as between 6 and 10. And more than that, people start splitting up.
Yes, you mentioned the perfect example that I was also thinking about. And it also related to the key ingredient that you mentioned. It's about listening, the listening. And somehow, I think that's the most difficult aspect of, of a team, even as a pair, as a couple, the listening aspect seems to be the most difficult. And how would you advise developing listening skills between a couple?
So there's fabulous work done by Nancy Klein, and she created the thinking environment. And basically, you give each person an amount of time to talk, and the other person listens with an open heart in absolute silence. Of course, they may nod and smile and so forth. The person speaking knows that they will not be interrupted. Because what happens? Someone asks a question, and if it's, a feisty conversation, I'm thinking in my head, no, but I've got the best answer, or I'm articulating my next question. That doesn't help me listen. So to do the thinking environment, everyone listens, and then it goes to the other person. And if you were the speaker, you then listen. I remember in the 80s in training programs, we used to throw a soft ball around and only the one with the ball can speak. It sounds fun and, a bit childlike. And honestly, it works. Everyone gets the chance to speak.
And you also mentioned about results as the center
Yes.
of the methodology you propose. I've also heard of methods where the process is at the center. Some the person is at the center.
Mm.
Why did you choose results as the center of your methodology?
Great question, thank you. So the process is important, and especially trust in the process. And the elements of the process are around the edges of the Coach Me model, what you might dip into to gain the clarity and results. And some areas you stay in a long time, and other areas, skills, knowledge, behavior, reflection, action, transition planning, you may only stay in a little time and then jump between them. It's not linear. The reason results is there is because it's all about the customer or the client and what they need. Whether the client is your child, a family member, a customer who's buying a product. If you're a government, who are your clients then? And so forth. So the results are there with the client in mind. What do your stakeholders need your team to work on today? What do your stakeholders need your team to be coached upon? So they're hand in hand in the results bit.
How do we deal then when we have the results, we want the desired results, and then we try to act upon it, we want it, but the results are different. How do we, did we fail? Did we in being agile, or how
So
should we look at that
what's
experience?
great about an agile approach is we're constantly checking in as we go. And if things shift and change, what needs to happen is tap into results and re-clarify the results. Are we still achieving what we need to achieve? And if the change in path still gets us there, then it's absolutely fine. And sometimes as well, you know, especially the past couple of months, the result itself has changed. And understandably, we can't carry on doing process for a result that is different than we started out to do. So keeping an eye on the results and shifting the processes needed is really important.
When you talk of agility in terms of teams, there's this element of time when we have to act quickly. There's this also this uh, belief that we should be careful. We should be, be careful. Haste might not be the right approach in doing. How do we know if we have to be hasty in reacting or responding to an event, or how do we know if we should, be cautious a little more and take our time?
Mm. So if I give you an example, so we may be a team that works with fabulous agility and flow and cohesion, synergy. And yet, if we're working together in a building and someone says, fire bell, everyone out, then what do? It's a crisis situation and you move to what's needed. Basically, getting out is the right thing to do. So sometimes quality and speed need to be balanced. Which one, and price if it's a product or service sometimes, which one takes precedent over the other? So just everyone think for a second of some of the projects you've been working on. Where was quality and where was speed? If you had to push one higher, which one of those would you actually put higher than the other one? And Dr. Salman there's also asked as well about the difference between flexibility and agility. And in terms of semantics, I'm not a teacher. However, for me, there's parts of agility and flexibility that are the same. And for me, it's about the energy. We can be flexible. However, is the flexibility supporting the results that are needed? Because if you always say, okay, fine, yes, we can push back the deadline, for example, is that serving the purpose? Whereas the agility, just like I see popcorn bouncing, and the agility is everything moving and bouncing, but then finally we put it all in the bowl, ready to be eaten. Whereas flexibility, is it for the right purpose? Sometimes the popcorn may jump out of the pan and we lose some of it.
Yes. Okay, I'll give the floor now to questions from our panel. I'll give priority to those whose cameras are on, since we're TV production. So who would like to throw, if you like to ask a question, you have to open your camera. Who would like to throw the first question? Dr. Bad,
Yes,
yes, Salman? I,
yes. It is
yes, Salman. Okay.
for my friend Dr. Claire.
Okay.
When we look at the difference between flexibility, people say that flexibility is within a static situation. It is when we plan, we bring flexibility. When we execute, we bring agility. And if you are coaching a team, how do you bring these two concepts into teamwork? The initial status of the team or during the process?
I'd say it's in both actually. And in an ideal world, when we set up a team, wouldn't it be fabulous if we use things like psychometrics to look at the individual people and their strengths so that we can then ensure that we've got all types of people on that team, just for many of the reasons I talked about in the presentation. And then if there's something needed, we need someone to shift into something else. What we can then look at is which of the team players can step into that function or role right now when we need it. Or if we're hiring, what's needed to grow the team even further? If we're all fabulous at process, but we're not great at finishing, someone who loves deadlines may be the next person that we need on that particular team.
Okay. Who else would like to throw the next question? Gloria, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, okay, yeah. When I pick up about the meaning of agile is, for me, the true successful of having a team, an organization, or an association is acceptance, authority, humble yourselves, and active participation. What would you advise of the persons of the team wherein those who are only listening? Because listening is one of the essence of a team, and and there are some who are listening, but after just only listening, but after like the discussions, after the meetings, and at your back, they keep on asking questions, they keep on telling something. So what would you advise for that?
So I'm sure that you'll agree, Gloria, and it's a great topic. There's a difference between listening and listening to understand. And one way that we can work with our teams is to check in. So from what we've discussed so far, what are we learning here? What are the action points? What other questions need answering before we move forward? And I'd also add, not only for the team leader, but for all members of the team, there's a concept called API, authority, presence, and impact. And it was Nick Smith and Peter Hawkins who came up with this model. And the A is for authority. So thinking about this, or if you choose, if you can do it actually physically, sit up or move or stand right now. So you are fully in your authority and confidence. Gloria, play with me. How do you express yourself, even from your face, in terms of, I know this, I'm an expert on this. And it's not arrogance, it's being in your confidence. And then the next thing is P, and that's about presence. And that's about treating people in the way they wish to be treated. It's us being courageous, and it's also working with teams with compassion. And then the last thing is impact. And it's being conscious all the time, what impact needs to be created in this discussion? What results do we need to leave with during this team meeting? So authority, presence, and impact can also help you call out before the meeting ends. What's your takeaway? What's your curiosity? What else do you need answering? And slowly, hopefully people will share that, and that may avoid the questions out of the session.
Go. Follow-up question.
Can I be biased here?
Okay, go ahead, Salman.
Okay. I've been into teams for 35 years. And one of the issues that really sometimes annoys the leaders and sometimes coaches is the lack of reflection in the team. And I found that the reflection is more, and maybe Claire can correct me on this, when it is facilitated by a coach rather than facilitated by a leader of the team, or maybe both. And I leave this to Claire to clarify.
Thank you, Dr. Salman. So interestingly, when you started talking and you mentioned the word expert, and immediately I went here. I do know a certain amount, and I'm also here as a learner. And if we all have that mentality, that really helps. Now, if you've got a team coach who's an outsider from the team, everyone in the team, including the team leader, is equal. And this needs to be designed in a way of working together. If the team leader is coaching, they have to wear two different hats. It's slightly more difficult to be impartial. So I agree in the, the platinum model, the ideal circumstances, Dr. Salman, absolutely. Teams can go deeper and work more effectively and produce more when working with a coach, because a coach will support them and challenge them and also call them out, because they can name what's happening in terms of the dynamics of the team that sometimes the team members cannot see themselves. And that includes the behavior of the team leader. The profile that we use a lot is the TAP 360, the Team Advanced Profile. And this not only shows the strengths and development members of the whole team with data from 360, the line manager and other stakeholders, it also illustrates the competencies of the team leader themselves. And that's why we advocate, just as you said, to have the coach there so the team leader can be fully present with the team. Very good point.
Thank you. Although I said earlier that I won't be calling on those whose cameras are not on, but I think I should call because I'm meeting them for the first time also in this Zoom meeting. Sosan, can you hear me, Sosan? Would you like to ask a question, Sosan? No response. Or what
Maybe
about
she's multitasking.
what about Marichelle? Marichelle, Dr. Lawrence, I believe you know Marichelle also. Marichelle was also with me in the Philippines, in Bahrain.
In
Hello,
Bahrain, yeah.
hello, Marichelle. Maybe she's also multitasking. Okay. Hello,
Can they actually
Marichelle.
hear
Was that you, Marichelle? Hello. Okay, I heard wrong. So, Glo, did you have a follow-up question?
Just a follow-up question is about unemployment persons with disabilities raised up on its higher rate because of discrimination, especially to the private companies. Here in the Philippines, discrimination is getting higher. So what can you advise for those companies here in the Philippines? They might be listening with us today.
I would totally advise them to look at the incredible amount of global research that supports diversity and inclusion in the workplace, because those organizations are missing out if they don't address that agenda. In fact, if anyone scans things like LinkedIn at the moment and many other job sites, you will notice so many positions coming up for leading equality, diversity and inclusion. People would not have those roles out there unless they knew it made perfect business sense. And I hope that helps.
Okay. I'd like
Thank you,
to
Claire.
put the spotlight on Joey. Hello, Joey. Joey has cerebral palsy. His team is mostly athletic. He's part of the Philippine team for the Bocha Paralympic Games. Also a chess player. Hello, Joey.
Wow.
If you have a car question, Joey, just write in the chat box, okay? And then I'll ask it for you. Okay, Joey? All right. Okay. So, and I'd like to hear from Nikki. Nikki is also cerebral palsy. Nikki, would you like to ask a question, Nikki? Go ahead, Nikki. You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute, Nikki. And okay, go ahead.
Yes, hello. Good evening, Dr. Claire.
Good evening. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for accepting uh, the invitation to be our guest tonight.
It's a pleasure.
I would like to, would you say that agility is innate, or is it developed through time?
Again, what a fabulous question. So I'm talking here from my view and my perspective, and people may give a different answer. From my experience, everyone has the possibility to step into agility. And if you're with a team who are working with agility, it's almost contagious. It's the way we do things around here, as Jim Collins would say. And some people find it slightly more difficult or tricky to shift into that type of mindset. So I think everyone has got the possibility, and who you're with and the environment and how much you learn can also have an impact on how quickly you jump into the agile approach. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So, Nelda, question?
Hello, Dr. Claire. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi. I would like to ask what is the best way to motivate the parents who are experiencing the hardships in life?
Oh, that's a big question.
Yeah.
So what we know is when parents are experiencing hardships, resilience is something that is powerful, because if a parent is resilient and able to cope with setbacks, that has an impact on their children. So if there's ways to have communities of practice and conversations where parents can support each other and have a voice during tricky situations, then that's definitely one thing that helps because of that community feel. And another thing is also providing, where possible, resources to support them as well. So one thing with one thing with resilience, I'm combining the two words, agility and resilience. One thing with resilience is the fact that imagine, you know, something's knocked over. How quickly does it get back up again? And part of that is how far something has been knocked over and how many times. But then there's also the element of mindset. So it actually brings in a lot to do with change theory. And in terms of coaching, a really useful model is to encourage people to name the emotions. What's going on for you? What are you experiencing right now? And next, going into what's in and out of your control. And by identifying that, those things that are out of our control, we can then hopefully shift to working with agility. And the things that are in our control, we can actually have an impact on changing them. And knowing what's in and out of our control is a really good step. The next thing, where possible, is taking action. So someone sadly has had, for example, a bereavement. And one thing that may support them is, for example, chatting to other people that have been in the same situation, or even having time on their own, swimming, walking, whatever works for them. But recognizing what shifts your energy is an important step. The other thing is, at times we need to give ourselves full permission to be in the place where we're at. Sometimes people say, oh, come on, snap out of it. You've seen all the self-help books. Actually, being there is an important bit, because if you move too quickly, what can happen is those emotions are not worked with, and they will rise at some other point in the future. So name it, what's in and out your control, choice, the things you can choose to act upon, recognize what shifts your energy to a positive place and go to that. And then the top of the model is recognizing what you're experiencing now when you're actually working and thriving in resilience. And it's not linear. Sometimes we can have days where we bounce back down. And so we need to once again recognize what feeds our energy. I hope that helps, Nelda.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Nelda.
I
My
have
oh, okay, go ahead. Nelda?
I have a follow-up question.
Uh,
Mom, Dr. Claire, can you give us tips to be good to be a good moderator to others with PWD?
Sorry, Nelda, just repeat that. Give you tips for
to become a good
A good.
moderator,
Can you give
maybe a
us tips to
facilitator.
be a good
Maybe a facilitator would be better.
moderator?
Okay, so a few tips. First of all, what is the purpose?
Yeah.
What's the purpose? And keeping that almost like in your hand throughout the facilitation. The next thing is designing a way of working together with the people and being really clear on expectations of what they want out of the session, and also saying to them, how flexible are you in terms of the process? Or do they want a rigid approach? We're doing this, 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 and this. And also challenging them a bit, because what people want and what they need can sometimes be two very different things. Another thing in terms of facilitation is remembering, as the facilitator, your role is back here predominantly. It's all about them and them doing and them learning and them taking that learning forward. So by stepping back, and I would call it a wide angled view, stepping back and seeing things from this perspective and noticing. You can even tap into what's called self as instrument. Notice what's going on for you. Notice when people are speaking, what that creates in your body. Were you tense? Were you relaxed? And so forth. Because that data can help you know where to take the conversation or the activity next. It may need some more time or some more probing before you move on. Or it may be totally, you notice body language, everyone looks at you and it's like, come on, let's close this. It's time for the next activity. How's that for a few tips?
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Claire.
Thank you, Dr. Claire.
Yes.
Thank you so
Pleasure.
much.
I'd like to hear from one of our board members, and she has polio. Lorelai, question, Lorelai.
Yes, Dr. Claire, magandang gabi. That's good evening in the Philippines. The goal of the center is to inspire the helpless PWDs to be an advocate. So what advice you can give to a leader of advocacy and how they can achieve the good result? Just like what you have discussed before. So how can you inspire others also, like the persons with disabilities?
Okay, so listening to everyone's perspective is definitely a way to ensure that the strategy is in the direction where the charity needs to go. And the other thing I totally recommend is shared leadership, because when we're volunteers, it's fabulous if not only are we volunteers, but we're also developing as individuals, as professionals, and as human beings. So by sharing the leadership, everyone benefits and they're upskilling for future situations and problems that may arise in the future. So shared leadership and ensure that the stakeholder voices are leading the strategy.
You, okay, I will ask a question, and then after my question, Dr. Claire and Dr. Lawrence can give a closing words. Okay, my question is addressed to both Doctors Claire and Dr. Lawrence. Okay, I referred to earlier. I referred to the team as a couple, the couple as a team. Okay. Now I'd like to explore the family as a team. If we focus on the result, I would say I'm the number one failure in that regard. I've always wanted a result where my family would be working together in an advocacy. I always imagine my family as something like the Jackson Five, or something like that, the Jackson Five or the Partridge Family. No, they are performers as a team. They do things together and they publicly uh, do what they're doing for a purpose. I haven't been able to achieve that. I I've always wanted that, but I can't seem to get their support literally, and they would really say they disagree. And this one, in fact, this nonprofit corporation that I've established with my friends here, my own family disapproves and has really not showed support at all. Well, maybe not all of them. Some I get some teeny bits of support, but not enough to say that I'm very happy about it.
Mm.
Should I look at myself as a failure as a team leader of my family for both Dr. Claire and Dr. Lawrence?
So what my intuition is telling me is maybe that noise is totally relevant. Did you hear a sort of whirring noise then? It sounded to me like it was a dentist and someone's drilling a hole in a filling and hitting a nerve. And ironically, clearly this is something that's a sensitive topic for you. And I think it's absolutely fabulous the work you do, but also sharing that topic vulnerably with everyone is beautiful. Thank you. And what I'd say is just like that noise, that drilling, I think you're giving yourself a hard time. What are you going through now? What are you experiencing?
Well, I've come to accept it as it is. It I didn't share my expectations when we got married. For example, it wasn't in the marriage contract that although I assumed that it was supposed to be a partnership where the wife would support the husband and the husband would support the wife. Uh, but that's I just come to accept it that this is the way things are. Maybe it's not yet time. Maybe I have to do something differently. I'm not giving up. No, I'm not giving up. I There might be some extraordinary event that will happen that will change things.
Mm.
That's how I look at it right now.
What way do you have open, honest, transparent, frank conversations with the family around this issue?
I have I have a problem with that too, Dr. Claire, because I have a bipolar disorder,
Mm.
and my tendency is to be autocratic at times, and I tend to shout when people don't agree with me.
Mm.
uh, so they've been turned off, I think, also by that.
Mm.
They do not fully understand what I am going through. It's as if they look at it as as a personal characteristic. They don't see it as a result of my disability, of my disorder. Uh, so but there were times that we do communicate um more intimately, especially last Christmas. Last Christmas, because my wife lives in she works in another province. She has decided to do that, and two of our kids are with her. My son is with me. My daughter is already independent, so we get together only Christmas time. And it was Christmas this last Christmas. We had a very, very good. I felt like a father. I felt like a husband.
Mm.
Keeping the team uh,
Beautiful.
close. Yes, but then January this year, I discovered this. That what I wanted to do also was to do live broadcasting, and Zoom was becoming popular, Be Live was becoming popular. So I did it again because I stopped. I said no, I will focus on just earning money. Okay, this is what my wife needs. This is what, so I just earn money, provide for my wife,
Mm.
earn, provide. I did not do any blogging. I did not do any broadcasting for 3 years. But
Wow.
then on January this year, uh, it all came out again. This is something that I like to do, something that makes me excited, and but then that's the time also that my wife interprets it as a symptom of my manic stage, of my manic side,
Mm.
and she's worried. She tells me she's worried. No, you don't do that. You're putting pressure on yourself again.
Mm.
Although I don't believe that that is her reason for not supporting me, and so we ended up having a discussion. If you don't support me, I'll just have to do this on my own.
Mm.
I'll do what I have to do. I do what I feel like I am called to do, with or without your support. That's how it is now.
Mm. So, as you know, myself and Dr. Lawrence, we've been in education for many years and we're not medical doctors. The way we work with coaching is, where are you now? Where do you want to be? What's the impact of that on you and on the people around you? And obviously, the other side of things in terms of the bipolar, it's something that I can't comment on that side just because it's not my professional expertise. Anything to add, Lawrence?
No, except I think it's not a rare occurrence for couples to go through this.
Mm.
I've spent the last 2 years doing, not earning money, just doing voluntary work. And it's put pressure on me as well to go back to earning money again. So this morning, I don't know if you saw it, Claire, but this morning I've received a contract for 2 years to leave home and go and earn money again.
Mm.
And I think I decided 3 or 4 weeks ago that I too would cut back on the voluntary work I'm doing, and I declined helping certain areas within, for example, the special needs that I've been working with the council for the last 2 years. I said no, I've got to concentrate on family and the stress that it causes. Actually, I've been incredibly busy, and I know Rom has been busy for years working like this. And I think we have to just take a step back sometimes and go back to that authority, presence, and impact, and look at that presence again, that respectful listening, and actually hearing what other people are saying.
Mm.
And I've listened to my wife, and I'm hearing what she's saying, and I've admitted that for the next year or two, I will go back and I will earn money. And so I can't comment on the bipolar side of it, but I can only comment again from a personal opinion that I think we have to sit back and listen and treat each other with respect and compassion and try and understand both point of views. And then we go back to that very positive cycle again, where you're building up a positive spiral of communication as opposed to a negative, decreasing spiral. I heard the dentist drill again, and I think that means it's time for me to shut up.
I love what you've said, Lawrence, and just to add to that, absolutely. And it's also about balancing that with the impact that we want to create in the world. What's our life purpose? Why are we on this planet right now? I also, as a woman, I also see that people used to say women can't have it all. And if this helps at all, my perspective is actually women can have it all, but not necessarily all at the same time. And it's that balance of, it's the agility of knowing what's the best thing right now for me and the people around me.
One way that I've try to adapt to what I am experiencing is to shift my degree of attention to the different teams. So I said, okay, I have this team with my family. I have this team with the certain with persons with disabilities. I said, I can't. It's impossible for me to be perfect to do both perfectly. So might as well concentrate on one first without totally leaving the other, but putting my time and energy with this one now because this one seems more achievable. This team is more responsive, and then putting in the other team, my family on the side. That's how I am trying to adapt to it now. All right, so I see Dr. Julius has arrived. Dr. Julius, would you like to ask a question, Dr. Julius? Dr. Julius is also from Bahrain, Filipino. He's a consultant of. Hello, Dr. Julius. Would you like to ask a question before
Uh,
I turn over the floor
um,
to our man?
Actually, right at this moment, I'm just only listening about the this PWD, especially in the Philippines, and then we're just only focusing on the activity because I do not meet yet the team of in the Philippines. So I think next meeting might I could also give some overview about the team.
Okay.
Uh, yes, Mr. Rome.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr.
I'm
Julius.
just only listening, Mr. Rome. Thanks
Okay.
for the invitation.
All right. Okay. So we'd like to hear from Dr. Claire and Dr. Lawrence to close our program. Maybe we should begin with with Dr. Lawrence first.
Well, I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity for Claire and I to sit in again. I've enjoyed the last three sessions that I've been involved with you. Claire made some incredibly important points today, and I think one of the ones I would just like to suggest from a purpose of advocacy is to expand your stakeholder group. So we're clear about the stakeholders include your customers and your clients, and the stakeholders who include your customers and clients, those can affect your bottom line. Those can affect any income that you might have. But your stakeholder base is expanding all the time because of the internet and the prevalence of the internet and discussion forums. You need to get your blogging out there a bit more and expand your circle of influence within those outer lying stakeholder groups, especially those that have got facilities they could draw in for you or expertise they could bring in. So I would suggest you, if you haven't done it already, you sit down and you draw up a stakeholder, including a communications matrix, how you're communicating with your expanding stakeholder base. And that could be a good goal for the next 6 months or so to reach out to people. I mean, do you remember a couple of times ago we met on Friday, I talked about the quality assurance and that the companies and the businesses that are for profit, and also I guess not for profit there, they have to go through their self-assessments every year, their quality assurance or operational, and it's increasingly every year, CSR, customer service, and working within your community to help your community, the community you're running your business in, is becoming more prevalent in the grading and scoring that companies have to achieve. We could begin to advocate that those assessors and those frameworks that are being used for quality assurance begin to include more emphasis upon helping within your community and inclusivity. And I also think, as I mentioned at the time, that I think if we were serious about getting rid of plastics, for example, in manufacturing, hammering hard on manufacturing companies that are not recycling their own products and packaging, I think you could affect within 1 or 2 years positive shifts towards inclusivity, including, of course, recycling. So I think that's something else you could be looking at to help yourselves over the next 6 months or so to gain a bit of funding and facility.
Thank you, Dr. Lawrence. Dr. Claire.
So I'll leave you with a top tip. A beautiful tip for any team at every meeting, at the end of the meeting, for example, is to ask, what's one thing that we commit to do better as a team? And that can be in terms of process, in terms of many things. What's one thing that we can do better as a team? And then the individual team members also share one thing that I commit to doing better as a team player in this team.
Okay.
And thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. In behalf of Center for Persons with Disability Advocates Incorporated, we'd like to thank Dr. Claire Beckett McEnroy and Dr. Lawrence Brown. We'd like to thank everybody who attended: Marichelle, Susan, Salman, Dr. Julius, Gloria, Lorelei, Joey, Rodeline, Nancy, Nelda, and Nikki. And for all who are listening and watching, and for all those who will still watch for the replays, we'd like to really, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you very much, Dr. Claire and Dr. Lawrence. Okay, bye-bye, everybody. Have a nice
Thank
Bye,
evening.
you.
everyone.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you very much,
Bye.
Ron.
Bye
Thank
now.
Bye.
you,
Thank
everyone.
you
Bye
Bye.
very
bye.
much for the support.